Well, all that metadata that I was talking about in the Geyer study, and it's really interesting that the graphs that go along with it. One of the the graphs that go through each disease, and they show when the disease was killing people, and then there's this huge decline, and then it goes flat, so it's not killing anybody more. Then the vaccine is introduced.
Yeah.
And it's disease after disease after disease. The same thing happened. That it's all because people started getting better nutrition and their immune systems were okay. And if you look at the kids in Africa who die from measles or these other infectious diseases, they're all malnourished. In fact, the only people really dying from measles in the 60s before they introduced the vaccines, I think the death rate had gone down to from tens of thousands per year to like a couple of hundred a year. This was by 63, and they were all kids. Most of them were kids in the Mississippi Delta, black kids, severely malnourished, and they were dying of measles. And this was before the war on poverty, before my father visited Delta. And, it's hard for a disease to kill a healthy person. It's hard for an infectious disease to kill a healthy person with a rugged immune system.
Well, not the Spanish flu, though, right?
Well, the Spanish flu was not a virus. And even Fauci now acknowledges that. And there's good evidence that the Spanish flu, there's not a definitive, but very, very strong evidence. The Spanish flu was vaccine-induced flu. The deaths were vaccine-induced, but originally they said it was a flu. But when they've gone back and actually they have all the samples from thousands of people, they died from bacteriological pneumonia.
So they died as a consequence of something that you could cure today with antibiotics.
Ampicillin.
Okay. So when we say, but they still. So what was their? So you're saying they had a compromised immune system already, but why?
Well, but a lot of the bacteriological illnesses can kill you.
Yeah.
It's that a lot of the viral illnesses, if you're super healthy, it's pretty hard for them to kill you. I mean, I'm just saying this not on an individual basis, but on a population basis. If you look at populations that are well nourished, you don't see infectious disease mortalities anymore. And that's across. I don't think anybody would argue with that.
So what are you saying that the Spanish flu was, and what is the documentation?
Well,
you said that Fauci has publicly admitted that it's not a flu.
Fauci wrote an article in 2008, and that I'm pretty sure it's 2008, in which he acknowledged that it was not the flu that was killing those people. It was a bacteriological infection. And a bacteriological infection, these days, you could 100% cure all of it with an antibiotic.
But something was making them ill and to make them vulnerable to the bacteriological
that's unclear.
infection?
And, I read an article recently, and you can look up these articles pretty easily. But the article that I read made a very strong case that the illness came from testing a new vaccine in Kansas at a military base in Kansas. And I'm a little hazy on the details.
But this is important to cover, right? So let's see if we can find this. Predominant role of bacterial pneumonia as cause of death in pandemic influenza implications. Of pandemic influenza preparedness. So what this is saying is that bacterial pneumonia was the cause of death, but these people obviously they were saying that they were sick before this. Correct? Is that true?
You know what? I shouldn't talk about this, Joe.
Okay, so
I don't remember enough about it.
Let's read what he says. The results: postmortem samples were examined from people who died of influenza during the 1918 to 1919 uniformly exhibited severe changes indicative of bacterial pneumonia, bacteriologic and histopathologic results from published autopsy series clearly and consistently implicated secondary bacterial pneumonia caused by common upper respiratory tract bacteria in most influenza fatalities.
Yeah, and some people have suggested that came from getting people to wear masks.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I don't know.
How would that,
that the mass became
bacteria,
a media
vector.
for bacteria.
Conclusions. The majority of deaths from the 1918-1919 influenza pandemic likely resulted directly from secondary bacterial pneumonia caused by common upper respiratory tract bacteria. Less substantial data from the subsequent 1957 and 1968 pandemic are consistent with these findings. If severe pandemic influenza is largely a problem of viral bacterial copathogenesis, pandemic planning needs to go beyond addressing the viral cause alone. Example, influenza vaccines and antiviral drugs. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
Prevention, diagnosis, prophylaxis, and treatment of secondary bacterial pneumonia, as well as stockpiling of antibiotics and bacterial vaccines, should be high priorities for pandemic planning.
So he didn't remember that.